Hello and welcome back to another Team Ferris pod. We are a couple of weeks delayed because we had a few hiccups along the way.
Well, not hiccups. We just, like we said in the last episode, we love to pivot as soon as we change our mind on something we want to do or something new that we want to try. So last episode, we were up in Cairns.
We were.
And it was only a few days after that. We'd all gone through a bit of a sickness, and then Renee fell ill. Long story short, the best thing to do was to haul us home to Kyogle in Northern New South Wales. So
here we are.
This is where we are. So it was a big trip. I did it in a day and a half. I only slept for about 4 hours on the whole trip.
Yeah.
Went wide open, got home, and then crashed for a couple of days.
Yeah, and I slept the entire time. So once again, it hit me pretty tough. Being ill, I don't get ill very often, so when I do, it seems to hit me hard.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show once again why we value our health so much, because sometimes it's not until you lose your health that you realize just how important it is.
Yeah. And it wasn't the end of the world. We weren't that sick, but
no,
I had something come up that
something.
And that weekend I needed to separate from the family, and given that Renee was sick and the kids are pretty busy, I was like, oh my gosh, I was stressing about it, and I'm like, oh, we've got some stuff we want to go home and sort out anyway. So here we are.
Yeah. So Dean took a couple of days off and away from the family to go and do Dr. John DeMartini's 2-day live breakthrough experience. So would you like to share with the audience here what exactly the breakthrough experience is?
So it's a course. It's actually the first course of many that he does, but that's the one you have to start with. And pretty much it teaches you about the basics of his philosophy. He can take you through what you can do a collapse on any resentment you have against anyone or anything. That was part of the exercise. And then he takes you through the values determinants. So if you're unsure of what your values are or what gives you purpose, he has a really good curriculum to help you find that. And then a whole bunch of other stuff over the whole weekend. You're about 14 hours a day in the book. So for someone that's not very academic and likes to be outdoors, that was a lot of work for me. But I was immersed in it and it was quite good.
You're rocking your chair.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so basically for those of you who aren't familiar with Dr. John DeMartini, he is the world's leading human behavior expert and is the man that I have done most of my training and mindset work, I guess, with over the last 5 or so years. His work is phenomenal and we highly recommend it for anyone who is just wanting to expand their mind. So the 2-day breakthrough experience really is a mind expanding couple of days, and it's designed to help you see the hidden order in events and really a lot of transparency and reflection. And the idea of it is that it helps you to break down specific charges and by charges, I mean like emotional triggers, things that push your buttons so that you can make objective decisions rather than being reacting all the time to your emotions. Because as we've learned, and you can vouch in sport, allowing your emotions to guide you, whether in sport or in business or whatever it is that you're doing, even in relationships, sometimes it can be a bit of a futile approach. And sometimes it's best to be able to see what's actually in front of you and really shift your perspective to get the greatest results.
Yeah, I would agree. And sports, like everyday life, you can kind of get by, and the consequences, well, they end up being pretty big no matter what in the end. But with sport, it's just so instant. Like with motocross, if you make an emotional decision, you instantaneously get the negative feedback from that. It's just what I've learned over the years of trial and error. And then we meet this guy that's got philosophies behind kind of things that we already believe in, and he's a really good guy to learn off.
Yeah. So the reason that Dean went and did the program was because, as most of you know, he's been going through a major transition stage and trying to work out what's the next thing for Dean Ferris. And so after 20 years of racing, Dean really had to sit down and look at, okay, you know, we made the decision to go traveling full time because we thought at the time that we wanted to just travel full time 365 days a year. Kind of we left with the plan to just go indefinitely. But as we were on the road, when all of a sudden that was it, we had a lot of time to reflect. We had a lot of time to talk to one another and actually go, is this really what we want? Are we truly inspired to be at different locations all the time? And what actually gives us the most fulfillment? And that was something that I think you would say was a little bit missing when we were traveling, was you were missing that little bit of purpose, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I just woken up every day for 20 years and, you know, it was all about getting fitter for riding a motorbike. And then, you know, I decided to not race and then I just wasn't sure what to do. So yeah, for sure, there was some purpose missing in our time away traveling. And it, you know, it was amazing and we'll still do some. But full-time travel, like with no return date, that has changed for sure. We did it for that was like a 3-month stint or something.
Yeah, probably around that.
2 or 3 months.
We've been really in the caravan, probably on and off for a couple of years now.
Well, a year and a half we've had a caravan, and we have spent most time in the caravan. Like this year, we'd intended to settle in our house here, and get on with the motocross, but the weather was really crazy on the north coast. Well, the whole east coast of Australia, really, but it was unbelievably wet here, and there was no chance you could ride a bike almost the whole year. So we just kept moving about. So we're very grateful we had a caravan.
Definitely.
But yeah, it was definitely, once the purpose was gone from traveling with the caravan, it was like, oh, this is awesome, but oh gosh, I need some purpose.
Where are we going to? You know, before when we first started off in the caravan, it was always like, yeah, we're so grateful that we have this house on wheels and we can go to see all these places. And this is the thing, you know, a lot of you guys like us probably watch a lot of YouTube vloggers and travel influencers and stuff on Instagram, and all of these destinations look absolutely incredible. And honestly, they are. But one thing that we really reassured for us is that when it comes down to full-time travel, you have to have a deep desire and yearning for and a value on the travel itself to be able to doing it full-time. It's funny, we genuinely thought that was what we wanted. But yeah, it wasn't until we actually got on the road without having that, okay, we've got to get to the motocross track. So we were like, cool, let's see stuff in the way. Then all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, we're in the car and we've got all day, nowhere to be. Where do we want to go? And
well, it sounds that simple, and you'd think it would be, but actually for me personally, being the man behind the wheel, it was just a lot of packing up, setting up. You do breakfast, you do lunch, you do dinner, and then in between being considerate of our young family, you don't get to do that 10 hours of hiking around a bush like you kind of thought that you'd get to do.
There's just a few extra considerations, but I think if you genuinely just are super inspired by the travel and that was all your focus was, perfect, absolutely perfect. We highly recommend it for anyone super travel enthused. Or maybe if you were doing it for a set time frame. But definitely for us, we realized at our age, with the kids at the age they are and the different things, we really had to sit down and stop. And over the last 2 weeks, we've spent, Dean did that 2-day course with DeMartini. I've done a lot of work, so I was able to do some on my own as well. And pretty much we sat down and looked at, okay, we redid our values. So we looked at what we value most, because this is the thing, what a lot of people don't realize is that your values shift. Now, just to quickly clarify for those unfamiliar with the terminology here, by values, what we mean is what's most important to you down to what's least important. So every single person on the planet lives their life based on a hierarchy of values. And so, like I said, what's most important to you down to what's least important. And that hierarchy actually shifts and transitions as you move through life and through different stages. And so what we sat down and did was went back through our values and what they were as individuals. And this is what we thought we would jump on here and share with you guys today is A, a part on values, and B, how that actually influences as a relationship dynamic and as a family dynamic. Now, a lot of people know us as Team Ferris, and I would say 90% of the time, we are a pretty rock solid team. But the reality is, there are those times and those moments when this team is not functioning that good, in all honesty. And if we stop and think about it, the reason that comes about and where that stems from is when Dean, because we're both, and you might have worked this out by now, but Dean and I are both pretty strong personalities. And so when one person has a set of values and you've got a set of values, it's really important that you, how would you say it? You work out how to
fulfill each other's
fulfill
values.
your own values, as opposed to trying to sacrifice. Because what happens is you want what's most important to you, they want what's most important to them. And where different conflicts and different things arise, and we can vouch it definitely happens in every dynamic, is when one person's values are challenging the other person's, and it becomes this conflict of whose values get met. And in a lot of relationships early on, what happens is you can, whoever's the stronger, I guess, at the time, or how would you say it?
Well, one person in the relationship would normally subordinate
to the other.
And
subordination, that's the word I was looking for.
And it would be okay for a set amount of time, usually.
Yeah. And so by subordination, we just mean that you'll kind of sacrifice your values for a portion of time because you're, trying to impress the other person, you want to do what they want. But then there comes a point where you start going, okay, the relationship's pretty normal now. I'm pretty familiar with it. Pretty settled in it. Now I want my needs met. And so this is where what we've been doing in the exercise that we've been doing in the last couple of weeks is looking at what are your specific values, what are my specific values, and how does me fulfilling mine help you fulfill yours? And how does you fulfilling yours help me fulfill mine? And the interesting thing is when you then chuck kids in the mix, is you also have to look at and consider their values. So what would you say the benefit of doing this and the cost of not doing it in your words?
Well, the cost of doing it is just getting your partner to agree to sit down and go over the values determinant. Really, there's, and there's a lot of cost if you don't do it. Obviously, you're gonna butt heads, and one person's going to start to resent the other because they're not getting their values or their time met how they want it to be, and then ultimately that's going to lead to a feud, and in the long run, probably a relationship's going to break down.
Yeah.
But if you were to do this, sit down, as Renee and I have had to do this many times because our values even shift over time. Sit down, work out what's our values, what do we want to achieve, how can we help each other achieve it through what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the crux of it.
Yeah. And the one of the mistakes that's quite common that we see is and even at times when you, and this is what we've been guilty of in the past, is trying to convince the other to come on board with our values. So we're trying to convince our partner to value what we value more so that we can kind of go and do it together or whatnot, vice versa. And so you're trying to almost convince the other party to do something that's more important to you. And this is where it's really important to actually take the time to respect one another's individual value sets, because even though you're a couple and in a relationship, you are still individual people and you have individual needs and individual priorities and different things that really fulfill you. And so I think respecting that, because even if there was a time, even in the past couple of weeks when we've been going over this, where I just was like, oh my God, I so badly just want Dean to want a certain thing. And I had to really do the work to go, okay, and accept that it is what it is. And the best thing we can do is to respect that and appreciate, and how to ask ourselves the quality question. If Dean actually does what he is most fulfilled by, how does him doing that action, what's most important to him, actually help me fulfill what's important to me? And vice versa, that question. Because even if you're successful at getting somebody across to your side, what will happen is it'll work for a little while. Like Dean said, you can subordinate and do it. but it does build up that bit of resentment and stuff like that. So yeah.
So to any blokes out there listening, just get your wife to do this, and you stay as you are, and and they'll work out how your values is filling theirs. No, just kidding. You should all do the work.
Yes. It honestly is the most valuable exercise you can do.
Yeah. So
in our opinion, for a relationship dynamic to work.
Yeah, we don't want to get too deep on that in a podcast, because we can just go down the rabbit hole so deep with this thing. So if you want to know more about it,
we'll put the link in the bio, so you can head over to drdemartini.com and do the values test yourself, and you'll see how to actually determine your values. And it's the most true and accurate assessment that I've been able to see. And one thing that I would just say on that is, don't just assume what your values are, because sometimes we can actually get confused in our own minds, because we get a lot of injections. So there's a lot of people out there telling you what you should want, and different circumstances and influences that get in the way. It's really important to be able to shut out that outside noise and ask quality questions to work out what's truly your life is demonstrating as to what your values are.
And it's interesting, once you know this, and you look around and you realize there's so many people not living to their values, it's crazy. I think it's just madness. But I must say, I'm very fortunate that I've been able to do whatever I want to do pretty much my whole life. Once I left school, I worked out how to ride bikes full time, and that's all I've done. And it's just, that has been my highest value. So very fortunate of that, but it's very sad to see so many people just, I'm doing an apprenticeship because, my uncle or my dad told me I should do that.
Yeah.
And they look miserable as shit. And you know what else is interesting? So when I was in this course the other weekend, there was like 28 of us, right? All online, and DeMartini was taking one girl, well, a lot of people through the values determinant, but there's one girl in particular, and she was doing all she had to do just to, get by with money and stuff, with a job. And for everyone that was watching in on him working on her, all right, and he knew exactly what her values were within the first minute of talking to her. He's a pro at this. But when you're on the outside, we could see as well exactly what she wanted to do. But she was too scared to say it, or she had all these injected values, and that she shouldn't be doing that. Yeah. And we're all like on the other side of the screen, just screaming like, you want to be a goddamn artist, just be an artist. Don't go do all this other bullshit that people are telling you to do. And then it was amazing. Once he, because he just asked questions until they come up with the answer. And once she realized that it was okay to do exactly what she wanted to do and be an artist, she just had a meltdown and started crying, and just realized I'm not going to wait any longer. I'm just going to do it now. I'm going to find a way. So,
and honestly, that's one of the most inspiring things to me about the DeMartini method and the values process and how it works, is it truly is mind-blowing once you step into that. I know it's only been in the last couple of years that, I guess my puzzle's been kind of coming together maybe for the last 5 years since I've been working with John, trying to piece together exactly what fulfills my soul and what purpose and impact I'm most inspired to make. And as I've been piecing that together, and I know that when I'm working in that space, when I'm doing that, it's like my life has so much more purpose and meaning and drive, and you just bounce out of bed and you face challenges, but the challenges, even though they're hard, they don't feel hard because you're so inspired to work for them, to go after them. And it's like when Dean was racing, because it was his highest value, some people would ask him questions every now and again, like, oh, what motivates you to get up and train? And he's like, I don't need motivation because I'm inspired from inside to do it. So he just bounces up and gets up and gets it done.
Well, yeah, just because we'd work with DeMartini, we knew that was the answer.
Correct.
But before we knew about his work, I just didn't have any answer, because I had no idea why I would get out of bed early in the morning and just get on with the work every single day.
And it didn't feel like work though, did it? Like when you describe it, you just wanted to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody had to tell you to go and do it. You just wanted to. And that's how I feel now that I found my thing. And this is the thing, now that we both have I guess, our own things, it's really important that we now work out, well, how do we both connect that together?
Yeah. Hey, and don't get us wrong. When you go down the road of your highest value and do exactly what you want to do, there is still challenges, right?
Yes.
There's always challenges.
Always.
And there's a saying, right? Choose your challenges.
Yeah.
So, when you're choosing what you want to do, you're picking your challenge. So if you're doing something that's really inspiring to you, you're more likely going to thrive in that challenge.
Correct.
But if you're doing something really low on your values with a shit job, shit boss, whatever, and some big challenge comes up, I'll just walk away. It's too fucking hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you're doing something really cool, big challenge there, you're like, all right, it's on. All right, I can get through this, no problem.
And that's the difference, because when you're inspired by it, it's something that it's a problem that you're excited to tackle. Whereas if you are doing something and you feel like I just couldn't be bothered, that's a really good sign that what you're trying to force yourself to do is probably not coming from you, and it may be an injected value. So it would be really wise to ask yourself, whose goal is this? Because a lot of the time we'll say it's our goal, but we've set that goal because somebody else, we're subordinating to somebody external of us that we perhaps look up to, and we're trying to impress, please, or appease them. And so if you look at the different goals that you've ever set in your life, look at which ones you have really been inspired to stick to, and you've been accountable, and you've been, you just show up, you're dedicated, you're committed, and you just keep doing it, right? Versus the ones where you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and then you never actually take any action on it. Because those are the goals, and what you'll find is it's not that you're a lazy person or that you're not able to do it, it's that it actually wasn't your goal.
I'm interested to ask Renee, have you ever done that?
I have.
Can you share some stories?
Okay, so the biggest one that comes to mind when I look at this, because there's been a few times where I have been susceptible to the injected values of others, and I've set these goals and I'm like, yeah, I want that, just because I'm surrounded by people who want that. And so all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I want that too. And then I don't do any action towards it, which tells me that actually I don't really want to do it. I'm just think it's cool they do. So for example, quite a few years ago when Dean was still living in Europe, he'd come back over to Australia for a few weeks. Anyway, come and see me. We were hanging out, and we actually went up Mount Coolum. And anyway, because he was, an athlete and all this stuff, like I was like trying to kind of pretend I was fit. Anyway, pretend I wasn't puffing the whole time we went up and down back the mountain twice. Anyway, on the way back down, he was talking about strength training and different stuff, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna set this goal. I'm gonna do 10 pull-ups by the end of the year. Anyway, had that conversation together.
How long ago was that?
That was 2012.
So 10 years ago.
Anyway, 10 years later, and I still can't do a pull-up. I haven't done one yet.
Hey, while we're on the subject, it's pick on Renee.
It's not pick up on Renee. It's not pick on Renee.
Pick on Renee. So, no kidding. Almost every day, without fail.
No, you're not going there.
The chocolate thing?
No.
Yes, I'm going.
I don't actually want to give up chocolate. That's the problem.
Yeah, but there's times you're like, I'm not eating any more chocolate. Anyway, it has been a hell of a road with Renee's dieting around sugar and chocolate and a few other things you really like. I don't know.
I feel like we're going very off topic here. We're talking about values.
This is your value. You keep trying to, obviously chocolate's high on your values, and you keep trying to deny it. Yeah, I'm not doing it. Anyway, a day later, she's like, for instance, I was driving out to the gym this afternoon and she sings out while I'm driving down the driveway. And I'm like, what? She's like, holding up a block of chocolate. Get another block.
Stop it. Okay, so I do have a guilty pleasure of chocolate, but I work out every day to make sure that I can.
Okay, maybe we are a bit off track here, but
we are very off track.
It's kind of the opposite of your values, I guess. It's like you need that. So you really need, is that a part of your values, chocolate? Is it on the values list? for you?
No, it doesn't show up on my values list.
Okay, kind of same but different.
It's less about the chocolate and more about the feeling. So for me, when I eat chocolate, it's that.
Can we talk about other ways you could get that same feeling, or?
So it's about, for me, the chocolate is, because we're naturally high achievers. We like to work, we like to do stuff. And for me, it's like once I've done a task or I've completed something, it's that I go and get a cup of boiling water and I get a piece of chocolate and I sit down and I go, ah.
But this is what happens, guys. I'm like, oh, she's got it. Like, because I wouldn't have chocolate. I would not buy it, but she buys it and sometimes it's in the freezer, right? And I'm like, oh, I'll just have a bit of chocolate and I'll have a bit more. And, I'm usually burning a lot of calories. And then Renee gets FOMO, right? And she goes in there like the Gruffalo and just eats the whole lot.
No,
so she doesn't miss out.
I do not.
A lot. You do eat more.
No,
you eat more when you know it's going.
I eat more when I know it's going. Yes, I do. But I don't go and eat the whole thing. I will still only ever have 4.
So you're telling fibs,
squares.
is it more than? Oh, you have 4 squares a day.
Well, I don't normally, but when you're hoeing into it and I'm worried that you're going to take it all, I go and I up it to sometimes 4, but I try to cap it at like 2 squares a day.
You might want to do some DeMartini work around this, I think. Is there a skill that you could do?
You know what? Okay, here's another point then, since Dean's going way off topic, but we want to make sure that this podcast is actually adding value here to our listeners and they're not just listening to us banter here, is when it comes to addictions. So if you want to call my chocolate an addiction, it comes back to a choice. Do I want to change it? Yes or no?
Or you don't?
Well, it's my guilty pleasure. And I actually genuinely believe that everyone deserves a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, that's fine. But you asked me a question. I don't think you really want to change it. You don't, right?
No, I don't. Yeah, okay. I don't. Well, sometimes I do want to back it down when I have too much, but then I'm like,
it's not worth it. This is what Renee says to me every time. A day goes, no, maybe 2 days. She likes about 2 days, and she comes up the kitchen bench and she puts her arms down. She's like so low on life. She goes, it's just not worth it. It is not worth it. I have to have chocolate.
By the way, we were watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with the kids tonight, just before we did this podcast.
How random is that movie, by the way?
It is.
Oh my God, I've never seen it.
It is random. But one thing that they did teach us on the show is that chocolate actually releases endorphins inside the body and makes you feel love.
Hey, off topic again. All right, in this movie, this fat kid falls in. Well, bigger kid, right?
Where is he going with this?
He falls in the chocolate, the pond of chocolate, right? And he can't swim. And our daughter she's such a sweet tooth and she loves chocolate. And we're like, see what happens if you be greedy? And our daughter goes, oh, I'd be able to swim.
It's okay. Yes. Very interesting. The idea when we were watching the show was we sat down with the kids and we were trying to teach them the lessons throughout it, like try and point out the messages. But for a 5 and a 4-year-old, they weren't really getting it. But anyway, we're trying to instill it. We're doing the work to do that.
To give it a little bit of context, this bigger kid was trying to eat the chocolate out of the pond, like just drink chocolate out of the pond, and then he fell in it. Just so you know, he just didn't randomly fall in it. He was wanting to eat too much. Yeah.
And so we were trying, and I don't know if this is Dean also subconsciously telling me to back off of the chocolate. But we were trying to just teach the girls, and this is the thing. Also, whatever we repress, we will breed, attract, or become. And so this is why I can't repress the chocolate, because I'm going to breed it into our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, we're already seeing that.
Yes. So we've kind of been rambling here for half an hour, and I don't know if that we've even added any much value towards this last 15 minutes of the podcast here.
But we hope you like listening.
But we do hope you like listening to us chat. To finish off today, would you like to give a summary of some value for the audience listening here? What value do you have?
Do what you want. Find a way.
Yeah.
That'd be the biggest piece of value I can share, because it's not till recently I just kind of realized people aren't doing what they want to do. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
surely.
so Dean lasted about half a day of not doing what he wanted to do. So to put into perspective, when we first got together, so when Dean come back home from Europe and tracked me down, he pretty much said to me, would you leave, your current life and come and, do racing with me? And, that could take us anywhere in the world. So I need you to be super flexible, adaptable, whatever. But if you just put everything into me and the racing for just a few years, career's pretty short. As soon as it's over, I'll make it all about you. And, whatever you want, that'll be it, it'll be all about Renee. Anyway, naturally, 7.5 years later, I'm like pretty excited about this moment, thinking, it's going to be so different. Dean's going to be coming, it's going to be all about Renee and what I'm inspired to do. And so he lasted all of about half a day, maybe, if that, before he realized that actually his commitment to me was not realistic. And that kind of is a bit of what stemmed this off, is because I had to, accept that at the time when I believed that, I didn't know about these universal laws. I didn't realize that him not living to his highest value actually wouldn't be that fulfilling for either of us. And expecting him to try and just come and make it all about me actually wouldn't make either of us that happy either. And so
well, in my defense, I thought it would have been way more fun drinking cocktails all day.
Anyway,
but that's where the half a day lasted. I'm like, okay, that was all right for half a day.
Yeah. Turns out he doesn't really like, we're just not really cocktail on the beach kind of people all day, every day. We like to work towards something. And really, I don't know how you would put it, but just, we have to have like a goal that we're actively working towards. And so the goal that I'm currently actively working towards didn't fully align with Dean to the same degree that we thought it would. And so now Dean is reassessing and looking for his path moving forward. And I think why we want to come and share this, because obviously, it's a little bit personal for us. We want to bring this out and share this with you because it's so important that these things are spoken about, and that we do really respect one another and have that option. Because I notice, even since I have kind of stepped away from putting all of as much energy as I was into Dean's goals and having my own goals and my own purpose and my own mission, like, I'm honestly feeling so much more alive. And I have a new almost vibration and frequency and, energy about me that is, and I notice, like, even a lot of the people that I know that contact me and stuff, they say, oh, you're so, they can feel my energy now being different. And I think that is what we should be all striving for, rather than trying to force one or the other. And you really can do it in a relationship dynamic and still stay a team.
Cool.
So we encourage you all to check out your values, do it with your partner, check out your kids as well, their values, and just have that conversation around the dinner table and just see where it leads you, and ask yourself, are you truly doing what's inspiring to you, or are you subordinating to some other inject value? And I guess just one more thing I want to add on to that as well is the other thing that we can do that can keep us feeling a bit stuck and restricted in what we're doing is we keep doing it because that's all we've ever done, or we made that decision or that commitment 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, and we haven't stopped to question, is this still the right decision for me? And so I'm going to leave you with an analogy that I love, and it's a Thanksgiving dinner, and there's a little girl, and she walks up, she may be 4 or 5, walks up to her mum and says, "Mum, why are you cutting the leg off the turkey?"
To fit in the pan,
because they're cooking, they're cooking the turkey for the Thanksgiving dinner. "Mum, why do you cut the leg off the turkey?" And she goes, "Oh, because I'm following Grandma's recipe. This is how I've always done it." So then she goes up to Grandma and goes, okay, well, Grandma, why do we cut the leg off the turkey? And Grandma says, oh, because it's old Nana's recipe, and this is how we've always done it. So anyway, the little girl toddles off into the lounge room where Nana, her great nan, sitting down on the rocking chair, and she says, Nana, why do we cut the leg off the turkey? And Nana puts down her glasses a little bit and looks at her and says, well, my oven was too small to fit the whole turkey, so that's why I used to cut it off. I don't know why these guys are still doing it though. And so this is where the analogy or what we're trying to say is, generationally, they're still following the same script because that's all they've ever known. And so what we encourage you to do, and as we, I guess, are a testament, is just when you follow what you truly are inspired to do, and you can connect these dots and intertwine it with all of your values, and then find a way to do it in your relationship as well, it really does create, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, harmony in the relationship.
And just, it's an incredible way to live. And so we really encourage you to do that and ask a question. And for those of you who are wondering about our travels and stuff like that, we are absolutely still going to be traveling. We do have some news coming up in the coming few weeks, which we'll share with you. We are going to be relocating, and we're going to basically structure our lives around having the best of both worlds. So we're going to have a base somewhere, which we'll announce soon. And then we will also have a few months of the year traveling as well, and throughout the year as well, whenever we want to go, basically. So we kind of get the best of both worlds, as opposed to all a base or all traveling. So yeah, ask yourself, what would you love to do? And then start building your life around it. And that's the advice from Team Ferris.
Yep. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Till next week or next time. Thank you.
Good night.